The first is a basis of facts, knowledge, and understanding. The second is a policy framework for dealing with the earth as a resource, a victim, and a threat. And that policy framework is important because it sort of speeds up our decisions. If I have a policy like honor my father and mother, it helps me make a lot of decisions when my mother tells me to do something. So when I'm 5 years old and she says, look both ways before you cross the street, I know that I'm supposed to do that. And when I'm 65 years old and she's 90, I know I'm supposed to take care of her. But it's the same policy. It speeds up the decisions. We have IT and social networking. And that's why the picture of the image of the ant is on the PowerPoint, because ants solve a very difficult problem routinely. They build, put 2 or 3 ants together, and they'll build an anthill. And that anthill is almost ideal for the preservation and benefit of ants. It keeps out predators. It allows the ants to bring in food and water. It provides means for eliminating waste. It keeps the temperature just right. It keeps the air circulating. It's structurally sound. It doesn't collapse. There is no ant you can accuse of having the big picture. No ant has the big picture. So you know that somehow in that code that's in the ant's brain is all the information for making the correct decisions. Now we have that same access as human beings. One of our big problems is when we look at climate change, we think, if I were in charge, I would know exactly what to do. But there are 7 billion of us with contradictory certitude on this. We can't agree on what to do. The ants have figured it out. We can mimic this. You can find books that you can load on your Kindle that'll talk about swarm intelligence and emerging forms of intelligence. And finally, we have leadership to make work effective. And already in this room, there are leaders. I bet you found out that in each of your number of tables here, there's 1 or 2 people who are emerging in a leadership role just in the hour that you have for lunch. Now it's great that these 4 tools are here and that human beings have found these tools in a nick of time. We're going to need them going forward. But each of these tools lacks a certain perfection. That foundation of facts looks more like a house of cards at sometimes. And what you find is that just the very thing that we need to make a decision turns out to either be in controversy or not available at all. The policy framework includes a lot of subsidies and benefits, a lot of political advantage that's wired in there as opposed to rationality. We're using the social networking not so much to solve problems as we are to let our friends know that we're in Starbucks. And finally, our leaders are struggling with the very simple problem of perpetuating themselves in office as opposed to the complicated problem of making things better. Staying in office is very difficult. So in conclusion, there are 2 things that I want to leave you with. The first is this. When it comes to living on this real world, the world that is the resource, the world that is the victim, the world that is the threat, you, the people in this room, are the gamers in this story. And 7 billion people are counting on you, the 400 of you, and maybe the 4,000 of you that didn't make it to the annual meeting, all your counterparts in other countries. They are counting on you to play this game and play it well for their sake and for the sake of all of their kids and all of your kids. And number 1 is the world is counting on you to deal with this freedom problem. The second one I'll introduce by asking a question. How many of you have heard of a book by Tom Brokaw that was written when you were about 7 years old called The Greatest Generation? Okay, so again, maybe a quarter or a third of the people in this room. So the thesis of that book is that when it came to the defining problem of the 20th century, how to deal with Hitler and the whole Axis community, a generation of Americans rose up to that challenge. They were like us, very ordinary. They made tremendous sacrifices, not just during that war, but in the aftermath of that war, to make it possible for us to meet today. Now, it's possible that 50 years from now, we could still be calling them the greatest generation. But I want to suggest to you that that's not the way we should think. And I'll use for this a basketball analogy. So if you and I were to stick a microphone in front of Kobe Bryant and ask him, tell us about your experience in the NBA, he is unlikely to say, you know, the greatest part of being in the NBA is that my career overlapped a little bit with Michael Jordan's. And Michael Jordan was the greatest basketball player that ever lived, and it was just a privilege for me to be on the same court with him. Kobe Bryant would say something different. He is trying to make us forget Michael Jordan. He wants to be the greatest basketball player that ever lives. Every athlete aspires to this, and it should be the same with our generation. If we make some progress on these problems, living with the earth as a resource, living with it, protecting it, and keeping it from being such a victim, and reducing its threats, then there's a good chance that history will call the people, you folks in this room, the greatest generation. So thanks very much, and enjoy your scouting.